So hello everybody. I'm Tomar Levin of Soul Guidance for Your Business, and I'm a channel healer and mentor for light workers. And I'm here today with my friend Kerry Lee, the Alchemical Artist of kerryleeart.com. And we're going to talk about purpose and creativity and the journey of purpose, some of what Kerry's purpose journey has been, and how she is now helping other people on their purpose journey, which is a very, very interesting story, in my opinion. So, welcome, Kerry.
Thank you. Thank you. It's good to be here with you.
Yeah. And so, the first thing I thought would be good to, I know you've been on a long, winding path, as most of us have.
Yep.
And we're going to get into that. But first of all, why don't we just locate you where you have arrived at to date?
Yes.
We know that purpose is an ongoing, emerging, evolutionary process, and there's probably more ahead, but you have arrived at something pretty interesting and substantial. So let's talk about that for a
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah. And so physically, I'm rooted in the San Francisco Bay Area of California. But in terms of where I'm rooted with my own purpose and my journey in life, is that I have created something called the Self-Discovery Wisdom School. And it's been a lifetime, of course, like all of us, to rediscovering really and reclaiming my path and my purpose, because I was completely lost till about 11 years ago, I would say. Maybe 20, I sort of got inklings of where I should be and what I should be doing with my time in my life. But it's been very purposeful in terms of finding my way back to me. And so the Self-Discovery Wisdom School is a container that I've created basically where it's rooted in creativity that anyone can do. It's not about being an artist, as the vehicle for those who attend to find their purpose. And what I mean by their purpose is how they move best through life according to them. What makes them happiest, most fulfilled, most empowered, whatever is most important to them. So there's different slices or ways of approaching ourselves that I've brought in experts on. And so they will be doing quests with the experts, and then in group, we're doing intentional creativity projects to integrate the learnings that they've had about themselves.
So that sounds so awesome. It's like you have, I know that you have been on this intentional creativity journey yourself, and that was like a big life-changing discovery for you, and it's an amazing, amazing process. I know a little bit about it, and I
Yes.
think it's a fantastic application of art creativity to personal expression, personal exploration. And you've also been using it and applying it in different ways that have been fascinating to me. Awesome. I mean, you've really been very proactive in taking that skill of intentional creativity and applying it in different contexts. And I'm going to ask you about some of those as well, but it's led up now to something much more comprehensive, much more, I don't know, big, substantial,
Yeah.
and encompassing a lot more than what you had been doing, but you have a lot of experience under your belt. I mean, you've taken that training and really put it to good use. But why don't we go back and just retrace your steps a little bit? So you are an artist yourself,
I'm
right?
an artist myself. My first painting that I recall was when I was 3, and it was of John F. Kennedy's casket with an American flag draped on it. Because that's how I took in what was going in around the world, was I
Mm-hmm.
expressed it visually. But growing up, I got some messages in childhood as well as in my early teen years that art wasn't really a very viable way to be in the world. Some of them were my interpretations that not necessarily were correct, but that's was how I interpreted it. And what that did is that created what I call a 35-year case of creative constipation, where I could not create because I felt like it, like I wanted to so bad, but put a canvas or something in front of me and I didn't know what to do, I'd freeze. And so what I did is I took art classes my entire life. Little did I know that those taught me how to be an art teacher, right? And this, what I'm doing isn't really about the art technique, it's about the process of ourselves, but using it, again, as I said, art as the vehicle. Um, so I got a degree in business, and I went through a long career in business as an entrepreneur, and I had a coffee house and a coffee roastery, and I did other things. Even as a child, I would make beautiful cupcakes and sell them to the neighborhood moms. So this entrepreneur part of me is strong in who I am.
And you need
But
that. That's fabulous.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's really, and I used to make jewelry and all that kind of stuff. So when I reflect back on these milestones or these points in my life, I see how it's all the path that's led to the self-discovery wisdom school. Um, but I had my own crash and burn moment where 11 years ago, I got divorced unexpectedly. It just was the end of our journey. Nothing bad to say about it. It just was. Um, I lost a business we had created, and I was literally left with $1,000 to my name.
Wow.
Okay, and so I'm very midlife at that point, right? So I had to make a decision. What do I want to do now? And I was not happy in the career choices I had made. I really made them to sustain my family and for the purpose of keeping my hamster wheel going. And so since I'd lost all that, I decided, okay, how do I want to go forward in this life that I really didn't expect to be in at this point? I was 49. And that's when I decided I wanted to reclaim the artist. I wanted to find out who she was, because if I didn't, I was going to implode. Like I really needed to let that part out of me. And I also wanted to do something that made a difference in other people's lives. I hadn't really felt that my career choices had really mattered in that sense. So that was the seed of what I wanted to do going forward.
So isn't that amazing? And it happens to many people that an ostensible catastrophe, disaster,
Yes.
something bad befalls us and actually opens a door to what we're really supposed to do, or to an
Yep.
opportunity to
Yes.
go forward in a way that we wouldn't have done. We wouldn't have put the brakes on the momentum life that we were in, happily in, like the hamster wheel that just keeps turning. When
Yeah.
do you decide to jump off the hamster wheel? Well,
Yeah.
when something stops it, then you suddenly think, oh my God, I've been on a hamster wheel. What else could I think of doing with my life? So
Exactly.
that was like
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah, it's a moment in a time where you decide how you want to go forward, right? And I may not, I didn't know how I was going to go forward. I just knew it was going to be different. And we're in that right now with the pandemic. You know, there's so
That's
much,
right.
gosh, how do I want to go forward now? Because so much has changed.
Exactly. So then at some point you discovered intentional creativity.
Yes. A couple
And
years.
then when was that?
That was in early 2013. I had healed enough from my financial wounds. I had done well in my corporate career. I had healed enough emotionally that I was ready for whatever was next. And so I literally went into my backyard on January 1st, 2013, threw my arms up to the air and said, Universe, I'm ready for my path. And
Ooh,
weeks later is when I met the teacher and the co-creator of this intentional creativity method, Shiloh Sophia McLeod. And I signed up for her year-long training without having taken anything that she had, any classes that she did. I just knew from speaking with her and a flyer that I didn't have to recreate or create the wheel that, you know, that I was wanting to be on. She had created this beautiful method. And so I went through her training that year and got certified that year. And then it's just, you know, rolled
that's
on and
amazing.
evolved. Mm-hmm.
And I love what you said about throwing your arms up, making a declaration to the universe. It's such an important thing that we need to do and that we can do. It's like we actually have that power
Yeah.
to call things to us when it comes deep from within our soul, and we just stand on our terra firma and say, this is it.
Yep.
This is it. I demand that I find the next step.
Yes, it was a
Bring it to me.
declaration and a demand, both of those things. That's exactly right.
Bring
And
it
I
to
had no
me.
idea what I was doing. It just felt right, you know?
I love that. I love that part of your story. That's so fabulous. So then, so that's great. So there it was all ready for you to just step into
Yeah,
year-long training, and then you had something to bring to the rest of the world,
right.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
And
Yeah,
were you still working at that time?
yes, I was still working in the telecommunications industry, and
Okay.
it's on other big stories. It was a job that didn't fit, but that I could do, and I could
It
do
was one of
well.
those jobs. Yes, it was a
Yeah.
convenient job.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
But it didn't. It really didn't fit. I felt like I had to put on a suit of armor to go to work. You know, not my comfy suit, whatever.
But here you had this period of transition. So
That's
you were still in that um, job to bring in some money, but you were also, this other part of you was just starting to expand and
exactly. So that was about a
get
6 year
ready.
period from the end of that former life in this life, first life in this life, past life in this life, whatever you want to call it, to when I actually left my corporate career. That was six years. And
Wow. And how did you know when you were ready to leave?
well, if I guess I just say it's enough. It's just one of those decisions. And so what had happened is I'd done really well. And like I said, I healed the financial wounds. I
Ah,
I had a small 401k going again. I had 6 months of savings going.
there you go.
And I won a trip to New Zealand, which is a whole nother life-changing
Oh,
story, where I ended up teaching and to sold out workshops doing intentional creativity while I was there on this trip that I won through the
you
corporation,
won it. That's
which was,
amazing. So again, the universe is just giving you all this
yes,
stuff, this
yes,
opportunities.
yes. And that's what I've learned is I've learned how to tap into these synchronicities and these signs and recognize the stepping stone has been put in front of me and I only need to take that one next step.
And I would call that living in the flow. That somehow you have learned how to activate that flow state
Yes. And
where
that,
things come to you easily when you are ready for them, when you ask for them.
yeah. And I can't say it's always easily because it's been a learning path. So yes, I learned how to activate the flow state. I also learned how to completely get out of flow state.
Of course.
Right?
Well, that's part of the process. How else do you know how to get back into it until you realize, oops,
Yes.
that's what happens when I get out of it.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's the difference. The contrast, you have to have the contrast to decide, to get
Right.
clear.
Right. And so along the way, I collect people. And so I am rich in friendships and rich in people. I think they call that human equity, I think, or human capital. I am rich in human capital because I find people, I like them, I connect with them, and I keep them in my life, right? And so all along the way, I was meeting these amazing people who were also about finding personal insight in different modalities. Plus, I kept keep old people. Like I can go back to almost anyone, maybe anyone in my life, and it's fine. So along the way, I was collecting these people who had other ways of self-discovery, right? I had my way through intentional creativity. And when I got to a certain point, which has actually been this year, all the pieces came together and it became very apparent that I was to create this container, the self-discovery wisdom school, and bring in some of those guides is what I'm calling them because they're teachers, but they're really not. They're guides to walk the path with someone.
So
Um,
this is your meta view, your meta vision, which is that you can offer a container that isn't just about you, that isn't just centering your modality, but actually, which is so brilliant. And there are many, many modalities, and you could have chosen from probably 100 different ones, but the ones that came to you were the ones that are supposed to be
right.
part of your mix.
And thank you for saying that, but I can't say that it's brilliant. It's just I discovered these methods and these modalities on how to get back in the flow, how to stay in the flow, how to know your strengths better. So it was just those stepping stones and picking them up and
Mm-hmm.
putting them in my basket along the way so
Right.
that when they all came together to actually create something. And one of my strengths is recognizing connectedness amongst things, right? And so I can say this is a COVID inspired business because I was doing my business in person. And now it's going to be all online and anyone in the world, right, can access it.
And let's just backtrack to what you were doing before
Oh,
COVID, because
okay.
you said you were in New Zealand, and that's when I became aware of your work because I saw these photographs of what you created, this public art that was so stunning, and
Yeah.
the process that you
Yes.
offered, and then I saw that you did that in other contexts. And I don't know whether that's what everybody does who comes through the intentional creativity path, but it's a brilliant, very effective method that you are very adept at, but it requires contact. It's a
Yeah,
person, it requires close up and personal contact.
exactly. So all of my work was live in 3D and in person, all of it. And everyone in intentional creativity, all of the different teachers, they each have their what we call piece of their red thread, their different approach to it. Some work on women in recovery, some work with children. So everybody is different. Mine, because I lost my way in life and found my way back, that's what my piece is about. But everybody approaches it differently.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a universal method, which is so beautiful about it. But it took me into the corporate world because I was familiar with that. We're corporate team building. It took me into the schools and doing professional development with teachers, creating art with purpose that was based on curriculum, going in and letting the teachers experience and have some resilience building by being in their creativity and doing some self-reflection, and then taking that and going into the classrooms with it. So that's been really amazing. I did painting parties, you know, those wine and canvas parties, but I did them with a lot of symbolism and a twist and intention, because when there's intention, of course, it turns out differently than if you're just doing something.
Copying something, yeah.
Right. And I got to a point a few years in, like I went to New Zealand, I've been there 3 times, which is amazing. And none of those times have I asked to go. It's all been presented. Yeah. The first one was from my father on a work trip. The second one was winning this trip, which was in 2014. And then you saw me when I was back there in 2019. And it was because I'd met now a dear friend before when I went, who invited me to come and participate in a mural making there. But I got into the mural making, which I call experiential interactive murals, because it's about conversation and creating conversation and connection, which is what I'm very much about. I did that because I was exhausted from all the teaching, quite frankly. It's a lot of work to think of the concept in the class, to market it, to go buy the materials, to go, I'm mobile, to go do it wherever it was, to come back, unpack, and I was just tired, I needed a break. So again, I put it out there that this year, I want to do more painting. I wasn't doing my just being an artist enough. And within, I don't know, a couple of days, across my radar comes this call for artists for a mural in Napa. And I had 24 hours to apply, and I had done this tree design that was rooted in a design that Charlotte Sophia McLeod had done for another event that I really liked, because there's an inquiry with the tree and people get to participate in the answers for it. So I'd already done that. Plus it was simple graphically. I hadn't painted a mural before. I hadn't painted huge like that before. And so I applied and I got it. And that became the beginning of the mural making phase.
That was the first, you hadn't done it before. You hadn't done the mural, because that's what I associate with you, are these amazing murals, which take, you know, big expanses of wall space.
Yes.
And people are doing their own personal discovery and adding their piece and their word, and everyone has a stake in this image that starts to develop through the participation of the members. And it's so meaningful. I mean, it's so stirring to me that people get this, and then the result is beautiful because you've designed it, you know, and their contribution is sort of added in this more flowing way, or this organic way, to something that you have created a beautiful structure for, and they're stunning. You know, and by the way, one of the things that I think is so wonderful about intentional art is that when you do your personal exploration, and this is true of art therapy or any kind of art where you're doing it from a personal exploration point of view, you have a product at the end, you have a piece of physical result that you can, which is often just packed with meaning.
That's right.
And which you can refer to for years and years, and tap into that, whatever it was that emerged, that came out to speak to you.
That's right. And actually go back and rediscover things about yourself. I don't want to get too far off track, but something super interesting just happened where an attendee of an end of the year workshop I do called the Vision Book, which is basically a visual book of a plan. This is a business plan, but it can be about how you want your life to go forward. He just came back to me and sent me the cover of his book that he did in, I believe it was the beginning of January, and it says Epidemic 2020 on it. And he's like, look at this. And I was like, oh my goodness. He meant it for his business, but for business to go viral. So, yeah, it's very interesting to go back and reflect on this, that when it comes from the heart and it comes from your imagination and your intuition.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It can carry messages that you're not aware of at the time, that only reveal themselves later. So anyway, that whole pathway that you were doing with the murals, and then working in the schools and helping the faculty of schools develop resilience. I mean, there was just so much power to that work. And I also give you a lot of credit for your initiative, because you are very proactive and you go out there and put yourself on the line and make offers and create things. Not everybody does that.
I do.
maybe that's that entrepreneurial streak that started when you were a child, which is
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Wonderful that you have that. And then along came COVID and everything ground to a halt because everything you were doing was in person.
Yes, along came COVID, and right about at the end of the year, someone in one of my workshops came up to me and said, I've been asking you for 2 years to do individual coaching with me. Are you ready? And I've been telling her no. I can't believe I told her no for a couple of years, but I was so focused on these other segments or these other things I was doing. And I said, yes, I am ready, because I was also kind of ready for a shift from the workshops. And it really sounded appealing to have them come to my studio and paint with me and work through different processes that they wanted to work through, typically about finding their purpose and their personal, manual of owner's manual for their life. So she came to me, and then a couple more came to me, and all of a sudden that's what I was doing, as I was doing the individual coaching. And then COVID hit, and I was pretty prepared for it, in the sense that we had a couple of weeks of quiet, but we were able to adjust and go online. And then I started bringing in these other guides for our work, because we couldn't be in my studio the same, so I needed to adjust. And that's when it all came together. It's like, oh, all the keys to the different doors have showed up now in this time when we're supposed to adjust, right, and shift and do things differently. And not only can I do it differently, but I can offer people a way to do their life differently that's going to be super meaningful and happy and empowering and free. Like, it's called the Self-Discovery Wisdom School, a creative journey to clarity, confidence, and freedom. And that's really what it is when you have all these different aspects of yourself clear.
Yeah. And that's so important that you're having a kind of more comprehensive view of what a person needs
Yeah.
to get to that place, because it's one thing to have a vision, but then to actually express that vision and make it real in the world, there's a lot of things that have to happen.
Yeah, and it's
Um,
self-discovery, because there's not a formula. There's methods to this, but we are all unique individuals. We are supposed to be different.
exactly. And so that, yes, and so that is, it's not you're not offering some kind of cookie cutter pathway. You're offering a methodology of self-exploration and self-discovery, utilizing many modalities and using creativity as a synthesizing embodiment and integration of each of the steps of that process. And again, I just have to say, it's a brilliant method. It's a brilliant vision, and I'm really so excited for you. So we're going to bring this to a close, but you had some images you wanted to share.
Oh,
What?
I did. So what I wanted to share was just this, because I think it's a fun story, was of this moment in time where I knew I was on the right path. Like, because there's been moments in this where like I said, I've been out of the flow and not knowing what I'm doing and that kind of thing. So I'm going to screen share here, and there we go. Hopefully you can see those. These are
Ah,
these are some paintings that I call inner guide paintings. This was part of the methodology that was taught to me through intentional creativity. And they're each filled with intention and personal symbolism and story. So this one here with this sort of the sun rising and
the one on the right.
Mhm. That one is called She Releases Her Artist Soul. And that was the first one I ever did in this method. And it's
Wow.
literally what released my creative constipation, because you cannot make a mistake in this method. Now, these will not be in the school. These will be another project, because they take weeks and weeks, or well, they can be quick, but I like it when it goes a little slower with these paintings.
Mhm.
Anyhow, so she was about releasing that artist's soul part of me, and it worked. And what's so crazy is I didn't think I'd ever painted a portrait before. And she was not perfect, right? And I still had a lot of perfectionism. Her dress doesn't fit. You can see down here, her dress is too big. She's got this kind of skinny neck that can hardly hold up in her head, and she's crooked and all that. But I adore her for that now, because she showed up in her imperfection, which
And
is
that
kind
was
of
the
what I.
first one. That's amazing. What about the other two?
So the other two were along the way. So then this one, the middle one, is called She Moves with Knowing Love. And this was when I was a little bit more clear that, yeah, this is the path I'm supposed to be on. I'm supposed to travel
I
the
love
world.
that.
I'm supposed to help people have fire in their heart and experience vivid color and all kinds of things, and, follow their their intuition and their calling and all of that. And it's just that I knew I needed to just move through whatever my path was
Wow.
to get there with love, just
So
knowing
you've
it.
got so you've got fire, which is it's painted in the throat. You've got,
Yeah,
of course, water and this flow of a very powerful image of water. In
yeah,
the hair, you have leaves and
yeah,
flowers, and then you have this kind of stormy sky above. I mean, you have all of these different elements of nature, of seasons, of
yes.
forces.
And this represents the mystery of what's ahead. Like we know, none of us know the mystery of our future, right? And so that's just
I
going into
love it.
that
I just
mystery.
love that. I absolutely love that,
Thank
Kerry.
you. And then the last one is called She Follows Her Own Stars. And that to me meant
Mm.
I had found my North Star, which had gotten lost in this fog of the mystery. And now
Mhm.
look how different she is than the first one, right? So
Yeah,
she's standing in her shoes that fit, and her empowerment. She's pretty
yeah.
serious. She's actually
She's
pretty
com-
kind of kick ass,
she's
right?
very centered. She's like really, really present and
Yes.
focused and strong.
Yes. And so again, here at the bottom of this is a compass, and I have a lot of compasses in my personal
Compasses,
symbolism.
yes.
I've doodled them since I was a child. It says,
Really
I declare to follow my own stars. So instead of doing what
beautiful.
I thought I should do for other people or other reasons,
Hmm.
this was about my taking flight with the birds there.
And the birds, I want to comment on that, what you've done with those birds, like flying out of her head in this kind of mist of light. They're so evocative. It's just
Thank you.
very, very magical.
So what happened about 3 years into this journey is my sister and my brother-in-law live in the family home that I grew up in. And he was in the attic digging around, and he found an old canvas that it was supposed to be empty up there, but he found an old canvas under some insulation or something, and he found a painting. Whoops. And
Wow.
this painting, he recognized that it looked like my work. I do not remember doing this. Luckily, there's some journaling on it. I was
Really?
13 years old. And if you can see here, there's an underpainting like these other ones have. This has got stairs and a door. I
Really?
I don't know
Really?
this. Yes, I don't know. And there's more stairs here. I don't know what's
Oh,
here.
God.
It's got that ethereal, right? Stars,
The
cosmos,
stars.
whatever.
And then just the way the hair is done is almost identical with these
Yes,
strokes of color. And
yes,
that's amazing.
exactly. And what's really interesting is that in this intentional creativity community, we do an opening ceremony or icebreaker or a way of creating community with whoever shows up called the red thread. And
Ah,
it's an ancient Chinese proverb
wow.
that says everyone who's destined to meet is connected by an invisible red thread. It may stretch or tangle, but it will never break. And so here she has literal red thread in her hair, and
Everywhere.
yeah, and these decorations in the hair like the other one. But what really got me were these last two things. One is at that moment in time, I had a pink stripe in my hair.
Ah,
That exactly like that and about that placement. It was exactly that color. This painting was done in the 70s. No one colored their hair like that in the 70s. I don't know why that was there. I don't remember doing this painting. And then she has no eyes.
right,
She
right.
was stuck in the attic with no eyes to see her way out until she was found and returned to me, which is just kind of what this whole story is, you know?
Amazing. And just looking at the eyes, like looking at her eyes, looking at the eyes of the first painting you did, kind of looking down, and then the third one, which are just staring right out, completely
Yeah,
strong, present, and like, you know, challenging anyone
yeah.
to stop you.
And I needed her at this time because I was going through like, am I crazy to put
Mm.
all of my life into creating this path that I'm on to rediscover me? And when this came, I was like, I'm not crazy. You know, this is actually the best affirmation ever.
It's amazing, Kerry. That's beautiful. That is just like this message from your earlier self, like it was a sealed, like a message in a bottle that was sealed, waiting for you to find it.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that is so moving. It's really powerful. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for sharing your story and your vision and the path you've been on, your own red thread, which has been a long, tangled one in its own way, as it has been for many of us, if not most of us.
Most of us, that's right. That's right.
So I so appreciate you, and I so love what you're doing. I'm inspired by what you're doing.
Thank you. I'm super excited, and I feel so grateful to get to do this work. Like to
Yeah.
literally from going from jobs that didn't fit to being I can't believe I get to do this. That's
Exactly. And that's basically the key. That's the ultimate criterion of
yeah,
if you're living your purpose, is when you say, I can't believe I get to do this for a
this is my
living.
life. Yeah.
Right? This is my life. Wow. So what a blessing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I'm just going to be following with great joy and excitement what you do from now on.
All right. Thank you.
Many blessings.
Many blessings. Thank you.
Bye.